Welcome to the Echoes of Evidence, a podcast by the Science for Africa Foundation, where we explore the ideas, evidence, and conversations shaping Africa's future through science and innovation. In this episode, our CEO, Dr. Tom Kariuki, sits down with Professor Shaukat Abdulrazak, Principal Secretary for Science, Research and Innovation in the Government of Kenya, for a candid conversation on Kenya's research agenda. Together, they explore the realities of strengthening research institutions, unlocking domestic financing, bringing in private sector investment, and creating the kind of enabling environment where science can translate into products, jobs, and societal impact. They also reflect on the urgency of building stronger universities, better connecting infrastructure and talent, and generating data for African challenges, as well as creating a culture of collaboration rather than silos. And at the center of it all is a fundamental question. How do we ensure Africa's science and innovation systems work for Africans and are sustainably financed by Africans? Let's now hand over to Dr. Tom Kariuki and Professor Shaukat Abdulrazak.
My name is Tom Kariuki. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, and I'm delighted to have this conversation this afternoon.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Shaukat Abdulrazak, Principal Secretary in the State Department of Science, Research and Innovation.
Prof, I'm really delighted because me and you have had a lot of conversations around science and innovation. Do you want me to mention the many years we've been having this conversation? But maybe I will spare you for that. But I think we have an opportunity in this day and in this space that we are in terms of the vision we have. As a Pan-African organization, Science for Africa Foundation, we'll be very, very focused on how we strengthen science and innovation across the continent. But Kenya is in this space where Kenya is a regional power, so to speak. There's a lot of investment that has gone into building infrastructure, nurturing the talent. So I want us to get into that conversation. And I also know that since you arrived, there are many things you've been trying to push ahead. I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to have a discussion around that. But first things first. Most of the people who come to hear you speak, they will know you by name. They will say, I have seen you somewhere. They will come up to you and say, I've heard you being very articulating about some of the things that are important. But most people may not know you actually. Who is Shaukat Abdulrazak actually? I mean, what's your personal and professional journey you have taken throughout the years?
No, thank you very much, Tom. Really, I'm very glad that we can have this conversation between me and you, having been friends for a long time in this space of science, research and innovation. But I think you've asked me a very important point. I come from a very, very humble beginnings of the coast region of Kenya, where I went to school in what I want to call a village school, so to speak, within the county of Kilifi. And then I went to Alidina Visram. All these are government schools. And then I went to Egerton University. I did my undergrad. And then after that, I got a World Bank scholarship. I went to the UK, and this is where I pursued my master's and PhD in the UK. After that, I got an opportunity to get a postdoc after joining Egerton University. It was a coincidence that I went through Egerton as a student, but again, later I was offered a position and I rose up the ranks all the way from lecturer, senior, associate and
I think that's when I actually met you. When you are Deputy Vice Chancellor?
Indeed, yeah. I spent time, I got this opportunity to be a Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of research and extension. I did not know that one day I'm going to come and spearhead a State Department in charge of research, technology and innovation. So that's the journey that, in a nutshell, that I spent a little bit of time as well in Japan. And mentioning Japan,
Yeah.
because maybe later during our discussion,
Yeah.
I will come back again and say why Japan.
Yeah, I think those are excellent places for one to reflect upon. Where have you been? Because I think a lot of the diaspora people, we always hope that actually they can go out there and come back and then bring all that knowledge. So for you being in Japan, a little bit of my own journey, because I also spent time in the US, I spent time in the UK. And then in our professional journey, we have to make very personal choices.
Right.
Why did you not then live in Japan? I see probably you'd now be speaking fluent Japanese.
Yeah, indeed. And I think the question would have been, why didn't I stay in the UK?
Yes.
But we decided after doing the PhD, we come back home and give back, if you like, to the society, because I feel I'm indebted to the community that gave me the opportunity. So I came back, I went to Japan. Actually, I was offered a position in Japan after the postdoc. But I said, I remember that time Professor Kipton, who was the Vice Chancellor of Egerton, had promised him that I'm going to come back. And I have no regret why I came back, because I believed and trusted that time, and it's correct now, that whatever knowledge I'd gained in Japan, I would be able to give it back, which I did. And I got a position of being a chairman of department, acting dean, and of course later became the deputy vice chancellor.
Excellent. So we will touch a little bit on the public universities and higher education when we get there. But just to kind of get to this aspect around your journey, and now what do you think about, are we inspiring young people to follow our footsteps? I think, I don't know, when I see all these announcements of exams coming out, and you have these kids, of course, celebrating all the successes of their schools. And then you get, like the media, asking these kids, what do you want to be after all this success? And everybody, and they would say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. What's your experience about kids? Have you encountered kids saying, I want to be a scientist?
Look, one thing I was able to do, and now that I'm back in the country, I want to continue doing it, is to give these inspirational, motivational talks. And being a scientist myself, I've tried to break it down for the young fellows and try to show the path of which they can be able to become scientists. But I think the society has created a notion that you must be a medical doctor, you've got to be a lawyer, you've got to be an engineer.
And wearing bad suits and a bit shabby.
Exactly. And again, if you look at the issue of being a scientist, who is a scientist? Is somebody who has unkept hair and looking very rough, and so to speak. And nobody wants to be like that, So I think there's a lot of work that we need to do, because I trust and believe that scientists do play a pivotal role in the society. And I think we have that obligation to look into the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so that we can be able to produce the scientists that can be able to transform the society for better.
Yeah, I also reflect myself on that. Somebody asked me one time, how did you get with science? Did you somebody hold your hand that guided you into science, or did you stagger and stumble into science? I think it's an interesting angle, because I guess when you were growing up, there wasn't like career development or career advice offices. But here we are, and we are in a position, and you are in a position where you can actually make a very big difference. And I would like to get into that now. 2 years on the job, I think now, since you came back for 1 year only. Excellent.
You're moving very fast.
I'm moving very fast because you have a big job to do, and you have to deliver it very, very quickly. Now, when I look at the engagement between our organization, Science for Africa Foundation, and your office, the State Department for Science, Research, Technology and Innovation, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, why did you position the development of a synergy blueprint for R&D in Kenya as one of the first products you want to be developed during your first year of your tenure?
Look, 1 year in the office, and I spent almost 9 years and 7 months at the International Atomic Energy Agency at the UN. I felt is a good time for me to come back and be able to continue contributing. When I came back here, I realized something that we had started actually. We were discussing, me and you, in 2013.
Yes.
Looking at the ecosystem, looking at the silos that are there, and looking at opportunities that we can grab. And I found that Kenya is not short of power, so to speak. Kenya is not short of people. But one of the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is coordination. And that's why I felt that with the support that you can provide, which I really express my gratitude for the support that Science Africa Foundation has been able to do, and other partners, is to bring this study and be able to appreciate what is outside there, and be able to come with a document with several pillars, 5, if I recall, the pillars that are there, and be able to see, for example, looking at the issue of capacity building. This is very critical. You must have a critical mass to drive the agenda of science, tech, and innovation. We must be able to have data and convergence of data. You must be able to link the industry and academia and the research institution, just to mention a few, and be able also to look at the research and innovation towards commercialization. So I realize that it's critical that we build that synergy, that collaboration, cooperation, and be able to have a very strong ecosystem partnership. And that's why I felt that's where we need to begin.
Yeah. It's a very good beginning. 2013, so that is to 2026. So we have had quite a bit of time. You know, I'm reminded of when you are on the road and you are driving, and then you have some cars that are very fast. It's like almost some cars on the fast lane, like Formula One cars. And then you have a big truck, and they're still moving in the same direction, but some are moving very, very fast. Given where we are, 20 plus years since the 2013, that act, are we moving like a Formula One car, or are we dragging ourselves on the main road? Or yes, we are moving in the direct direction. But is your role, do you see that as part of now accelerating that act to be delivered? Or how do you see your tenure for the next 2-3 years going to be premised on?
Look, when I left Egerton, I joined the National Council for Science Technology. And with the partners and friends like yourself, we were able to converge and be able to come with Science, Technology, Innovation Act of 2013. That midwifed into the Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation, National Research Fund, and Kenya Innovation Agency. I think we had moved pretty well up to that point. The fact that we were able to also put it in law that we need, as a government, to allocate 2% of the GDP. I think that was phenomenal in my opinion. And then after that, we started operationalization. When some of us went out, we could be able to track the progress that was done. And I must say that I have seen in the tune of over 500 different proposals being funded. We have seen NACOSTI, for example, registering over 46 research institutions, providing that coordination, regulatory aspect. We have seen Kenya having several programs looking at entrepreneurship in the universities, having startups, for example, different festival, people coming together. In my opinion, we are on the trajectory. We are on the right trajectory, but we need probably to move a little bit faster. And that's why I see this is a game changer. When His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, created a dedicated State Department to look at this matter of science, research and innovation. Then I said, wait a minute, we were moving at that speed, but now we're going to move to that Formula One that you were talking about. Because now the path is clearly, decided. The vision is there. We are not short of people. We only need now to ensure that we can put the caliber of people in place to be able to drive this agenda.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised myself, actually, because all those years, all of us have been trying to make the journey to, I think previously it was Directorate for Science,
Yes.
embedded within another major big government ministry.
Right.
Where I was pleasantly surprised to see that the State Department was being positioned under the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. I think that was brilliant, because there are many other things to talk about what science can be done in the in regard to the bigger internationalization of the work that we do. But before we get there, when you look at that blueprint, and I have been trying to go through it.
Yes.
By the way, I should say that we are very, very, very happy that we were able to contribute, because you had a working team, and I think that working team was coming from various organizations, and I think we all made a contribution. And I recall that we had some people actually who became team members of that team. So the question, I think, is one, when you look at that document, after you received it, what really surprised you about it? Pleasantly surprised you? And were there some disappointments in there that you said, this is disappointing to get, because it's about data. You go through all that data. Number of PhDs, number of patents registered. I mean, what was pleasantly surprised for you? What really was disappointing for you?
I mean, one of the things that I saw in that study that really was disappointing for me is the fact that we are still donor dependent in terms of the ecosystem of science, research and innovation. More than 70%. There are institutions in this country that 70% would be able to expect funding from outside. This is one. The other thing also is that there is a mismatch in terms of where the researchers are and where the infrastructure is. So you see, when you go to the universities, that's where you see really the researchers, the intellectuals, so to speak. But when you go to the research institutions, you see where the facilities are. So that mismatch. And I thought that was somehow disappointing. However, I looked at it and said, wow, this is a great opportunity for me now to connect the dots and be able to make people to work together. The other thing is the indicators in terms of how many PhDs we are producing. I've always been advocating for indicator of at least 100 PhDs per million population. All right? But at the moment, we are standing at about maybe 500 PhDs or so. Now,
this is how many universities do we have? Right?
We have 86 public and private universities. And I think we need to do a little bit more, in terms of that space. And the reason is because I tend to think universities are more into undergrad, programs. So that's why together, I think we can be able now to craft strategies, ideas on how we can build a critical mass. Because even with this number of universities that we have, unless you really have critical mass of PhD holders, then it becomes a challenge
it's a big challenge. So when I was director in previous public agency, I mean the Kenya Primate Research Institute, I recall going out one time and trying to engage with diaspora scientists. And the question always has been, yes, you don't have to come back. If you can come back, that's great. But wherever you are sitting, you can make a contribution. At the time, actually, we wanted to recruit them to come back. And I was going with this because one of the things you are making reference to is the need for us to attract, reward them properly so that we can retain them. I think the the awakening call for me was we recruited a number of the diaspora scientists. And within 2 years, out of the 5, 3 of them had gone back. The 2 who left, one of them came back to me and told me, I am happy to be back home. But what you are paying me, I am struggling to take my wife for dinner on a weekly basis. And I want to make an exit. Now, I'm making this reference because It takes people.
Yeah.
It takes great infrastructure. And we are not going to get the knowledge and generate it properly. So let's unpack a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Domestic financing has
Yes.
been a challenge.
Yeah.
The 1% that was acclaimed by African Union, I can't even remember when that was. But there is a statutory angle here in Kenya that was actually put in the act. I want you to speak a little bit about that because there's a lot of conversations, some of them misplaced in my view, about the contribution of government. And I know, you and I know there are contributions being made by the government.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. No, I think, as you rightly say, if you look at the Science, Technology, Innovation Act of 2013, it's clearly spelled out that we need to allocate 2% of the GDP. With the formation of the National Research Fund and Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, there was some funding that was allocated. Our rough estimate now, we are standing at 0.78% of the GDP. I think this is
decent, actually.
Exactly, exactly. You know, and I think one thing that I must put it on record here is the fact that when His Excellency the President was addressing the nation, he clearly spelled out that his vision is to ensure that we can put 1% of the GDP towards 2%, and in 10 years to allocate at least 1 trillion Kenya shillings.
Yeah.
Now, being a reformer himself at the continental level, being a change maker, I have no doubt that this is going to happen. And in many occasions after that, he's clearly spelled out that is his vision. That will be his legacy to ensure that we can fund the space of science, technology, research, and development. You know, to spur growth, to create, more job opportunities, for example. So I think that is the trajectory we are in. And since I've taken up this position, the discussions that we've had with both His Excellency the President and the Prime Cabinet Secretary, I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, without that commitment from the highest level of government.
But maybe something else that before I forget, we are not just going to depend on the government. Because this domestic financing is very critical. And I think one thing that I would like to ensure that is going to happen is to bring the private sector as well on board, you know, so that under the public-private partnership, then we can be able to leverage. The government can be able to create that enabling environment, creating a state department, for example, having research institutions, universities as well. But then some of the beneficiaries is the private sector. And I think it's a high time that the private sector can also come forward and be able to fund that space.
The private sector is critical in my view. And maybe this now, it can segue to the next area of discussion I wanted to have with you. Yes, it's one thing to generate good knowledge. And our researchers, no doubt, actually are doing brilliant work in Kenya and across the continent in terms of the research work going on. I think the priorities are in place because you come from the world of agriculture and food security, climate, energy, health. I come from the world of biomedical sciences. So we know the priorities actually are in the right place. I think the challenge we have is how do we move that from research to commercialization or from research to public goods? Where society can actually embrace them and say, science is impacting my life. How do you see us going in that direction? And how can Kenya become a model for doing this so that organizations like us who are Pan-African organizations can actually then go out there and replicate and scale this moving forward?
I think, in my opinion, being a scientist myself, I've always advocated for looking at the societal issues, looking at what we want to call the demand-driven, so to speak. Before a scientist or researchers embark on their work, they need to see what exactly they want to do, why they want to do it, what are the gaps, you know. So if you like, the bottom-up approach is very, very critical. Because the moment we do that and be able to get the relevant stakeholders to tell us what is happening. I give you an example. You've talked about food security. It's unacceptable that at this time we still have pre and post harvest losses in the tune of 30%.
Yeah.
Now, if you are a researcher in areas of food security or agriculture, one thing that you would like to do is how are you going to resolve that challenge of food security, food safety, and making sure that you can minimize post harvest losses. That now, if we do that, then you will be able to translate the research findings quickly into the impact of the society.
Yeah.
If you pick another example in health, for example, today we are being informed that we have almost 43,000 cases of cancer in this country.
Wow.
Now,
Yes.
one of the questions that I would like to see us having a conversation and dialogue on is what causes cancer?
Yeah.
What causes the increase in cancer? Now, then we can fund that space and be able to know that how can we minimize that challenge. So what I'm trying to say is that the issue of knowledge-led, innovation-led economy, this is how we're supposed to be doing it, so that we address the challenges of the society, come up with innovation, commercialization, research that would be able really to translate and have impact in the society.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think there is only so much that even domestic or international funding can do.
Yes.
I think for us, we are always very clear when we engage with policymakers. We tell them we cannot replace domestic financing.
No.
We can only complement what is being generated domestically.
Yeah.
And actually, the data doesn't look bad for Kenya because there are some countries across the continent which we look at them and we see actually that almost 90% of their research is actually being supported from outside.
Right.
I think Kenya is probably could be around 60-40, perhaps. Maybe you have the data better than me. But the most important thing is, like you say, the private sector, just combination of academia, private sector, industry, philanthropic organization. Now, this is a question I want to ask you around the private sector because we all struggle to engage with them.
Yeah.
Is there like a way to unlock their participation beyond them seeing organizations, not organizations, countries as market only for their product? How do we get them involved in R&D? What do you think we should be making as a value proposition for them?
I think one of the area the private sector would be keen to is that whatever ventures, whatever business they're into, they would like to understand and appreciate if they're going to support any initiatives, what value will it add into their products? They will be more than happy to do that. They would also be keen to know in terms of how they are going to move forward to make things much better in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So I think right from the universities, from the research institutions, involvement of the private sector from the beginning, I think is very critical. Secondly is also the language. We must be able to understand the language of the private sector and the public sector, so to speak, is in my opinion, different. They are into business. They want to make money. They want to have sustainability. So as researchers and scientists do their work, if they would be able to look at some of the undertakings that the private sector is keen on, I am 100% sure the private sector would be able to come in and support that venture. But also, what incentives are we going to create? And this is something that I'm also talking as government. I'm putting forward into tax rebates, for example. Or if you're going to invest in this infrastructure, there will be recognition here, and so on and so forth. We must be able to create that enabling environment for the private sector to come in and be able to strive.
On my way from my house this morning, I looked at one of the articles I found. When you open your phone and you see an article of interest. And one of the things that struck me about that article was around the just how less of clinical trials that come to Africa, despite the fact that some of these clinical trials happening outside of the continent are our burden of diseases here in Africa.
Right.
And so you would imagine that there will be a lot of clinical trials happening in Africa, and that has not been the case. So I'm hearing you that we need to get the private sector, because they do better than academia in doing clinical trials, for example, or even field testing for products going to the field. So is this a conversation that you see could bring together all the actors in one space to have some very candid conversations about this? Would that be within the confines of the State Department, convening all of us to be part of that conversation?
Definitely. And I think this comes from the point of data. We must be able to generate our own data.
Yes.
This, in my opinion, has been a challenge for a long time. We've been consumers of technology. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry, if you look at production of medicines in the country, both livestock and humans as well, we tend to be more of receiving, so to speak. But I think the moment you start creating your own data, then you can be able to come with your own strategies and be able to produce your own products, so to speak. And that's where the clinical trials would be able to come in. We have institutions like Kenya Medical Research Institute.
Very well settled.
Exactly. And then where used to be the IPR.
Yes.
These are all institutions that we can look into and be able to ensure that these clinical trials are being done in such a way that they're going to generate that information for us and be able to spur the industry.
Actually, that can get into the next aspect, because this is connected to what you have been saying around institutions themselves.
Right.
The best science comes out of the best institutions.
Exactly.
I don't know whether you visited your university since those days, in Jaton University, for example. I don't know about you, but sometimes I visit our universities and I find that there is some storage somewhere with some great infrastructure, some equipment that was donated by somebody, which have never actually been
fully
commissioned
utilized.
or fully utilized. So the underutilization of the spaces and the infrastructure and the equipment that we have, is that an area of your concern that you feel, we feel can be fixed moving forward?
Yeah, I think, this aspect of playing cards so close to your chest as an individual, and going into a notion of I, me, and myself, and the notion of this belongs to me. This is a project. This is my project. This is one thing, that silo, I'm trying to break it. And I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I have had a conversation with 32 vice chancellors of public universities. Now I'm planning to have a conversation with the private, universities vice chancellors. I've had a conversation with all research institutions coming together with the head of public service. And again, it was the same. We just want to appreciate what facility is where. We are in the trajectory of doing what we call the repository, to really appreciate what infrastructure is where. And then eventually we come with the Science, Technology, Innovation Observatory. The idea here is really to say, wait a second, this is, it belongs to all of us. There is no need to have duplication of efforts. And I know there are institutions where, unfortunately, you have somebody who goes for a postdoc and locks the office or locks the lab and says, this belongs to me, I will open when I get back. So these are some of the things that I have been advocating for, building synergies, and that's why this document also is speaking to that as well. Building the synergies, breaking the silos, and be able to appreciate. But the beauty is the 1% that we are talking about, because
unlock all of that.
We'll be able to unlock that because we're going to have centers of excellence, and we're going to have a modality of which researchers will be able to go into the space. The fellows will be able to work, and it will belong to us and not just to me.
But let me challenge on something.
Yes.
When we put out requests for proposals here in Kenya, we get most of those proposals from public institutions, but not very few from our higher education institutions, universities. And that is something that I want to explore a little bit with you. why is it that our universities are struggling to put together a compelling application for receiving funding and grants? Is it issues around governance, accountability? I mean, where do you feel where the challenges are for our universities? I know we hear all kind of news about highly indebted, billions that needs to be done. Is it now where things are falling apart, or is there something that here should be done more, can be fixed, so that we get them to another level of competitiveness?
Look, having served in the university myself at a senior position, one of the challenge that we see in the university, although the mandate of university is to teach, research, and to do extension, unfortunately, if you don't go to class for a week or two, the student will be up in arms and say, look, professor here is not coming to class. If you don't do any research in the university, you can stay as long as you want. So my advocate is that we need to relook at the setting up of the universities and be able to ensure that component of research is also being given due diligence, so to speak. Right? And also, since I've come back, for example, I have had with Horizon 2030 with the EU, trying to build capacity and capability in preparing of bankable documents, proposal, so that the university professors and intellectuals will also be able to prepare this proposal. But having said that, also, I'm in cognizance the fact that we spend a lot of time in teaching and very little time in
allocated
research.
for research.
Exactly. And that's why you see, I'm very pleased that the State Department was now, crafted out and is standing on its own. Then we can be able to have more conversation on the position of the research and how research will be able to, take us forward. Because when you have it lumped somewhere together with other things, unfortunately, research takes a backseat. So now we are now discussing this with the universities, research institutions. I tell you one thing. One of the things that I would like to do is to create clusters. And clusters is, if you have, just to give you an example, Kenya Medical Research Institute, and then you have universities that have got health-related sort of programs, they'd be able to come together where you have a researcher in the university or a scientist in the university and research institutions working together, and be able to look at the societal issues and break that silos. And likewise, you can get a researcher from a research institution spending time to teach in the university as well, so that they can be able to apply and be able to use some of the findings they found. So these clusters is something that I would like to see,
I like that
happening.
idea. I really like that idea. And our offer is, so we have the tools and the standards now. You recall you came and we launched with you good research management practice standard.
Indeed.
And I think you recall I mentioned to you that one of the things we would like to do is to actually we roll it out for implementation in Kenya, even before get into the Pan-African ecosystem. So that is something that I think we would like to explore with you moving forward. GRMP, we have other standard like good financial grant practice. We have a tool for how institutions can recover their costs for doing R&D. So I'm looking forward to that. But when we're getting to the close now, let me. We started with the journey you have taken as a scientist and the job you occupy. So let's finish with a little bit of legacies. I hope you'll be on the job for 10 years. But
maybe
but
not.
what would you think the kind of legacy you would want to leave when the time comes for you to leave from that office? 2030 is just around the corner. And I think, in crafting the Kenya Vision 2030, we thought this is, wow, it's like 2063 for the African blueprint. 2030 is just
around the corner.
SDGs are just down the line.
Exactly.
You have a blueprint you have authored. You actually have premised on doing something by 2030. Now, what legacy do you want to leave? What impact do you want your office to make over the next few years or many more years?
Look, we already have, as you rightly say, the Vision 2030.
Yeah.
The government is now bringing back the National Economic Social Council.
Yeah.
We have the bottom-up economic transformative agenda with the 5 pillars. I think one thing that I would like to contribute into this space and be able to see it as a legacy first is a change of mindset.
Okay.
That's one thing. And I know it's not easy.
Yeah.
But if we can be able to make our researchers and scientists work together, break the silos,
Yeah.
and if we can be able to build synergies and collaboration, that, in my opinion, is going to be a game changer. That's one. The other thing is not that's research for the sake of it, but the commercialization of research and innovation for impact.
Yeah.
This is something that we would like to see. The third thing I would like to see as a legacy is sustainability.
Sustainability.
So that whatever we do, we are looking at inward. We are looking at domestic financing, we've talked about.
Yeah.
We are looking at capacity and capability. We are looking at brain gain, brain drain, minimize brain drain, have brain gain, and very important, brain circulation. This is another thing that so that we have flexibility in our university. We tap the talents that we have in the diaspora, making sure that they can work with our people. If we can be able to do that, although 2030 is around the corner, I can tell you we're going to count more blessings.
Yeah.
We're going to get more dividends, so to speak.
Yeah.
So breaking the silos, building collaboration, cooperation, and making sure that we have change of mindset, having impact, bringing more innovation, research towards commercialization.
Yes.
We must scale out and scale up in whatever we do and be able to believe in ourselves and believe it's possible.
Yeah.
If we can do that, I think we will count more blessings, in my opinion.
Yes. Science innovation has to make sense for the society.
Right.
The young people
Yes.
must see their jobs
Yes.
and opportunities.
Yes.
They will do the rest.
Yes.
And we have a job, actually, to try and deliver on that,
Yes.
even as we bring the next generation of leaders for the country and across the world.
Yes.
Prof, this has been a great conversation. And I hope we had another 1 hour or 2 hours. But let me ask you, as we wind down, what would be your parting shot for this, based on what we have discussed, the immediate future, and your medium-term thinking about what needs to happen? I know you have many, many plans for the rest of the year.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I think there's one thing that I really want to share with our partners out there is there is no monopoly of knowledge, and we are advocating for building synergies, collaboration, and cooperation. And I want to reach out to all partners that now we have the space, we have the ecosystem, we have a State Department that is really looking at the trajectory of taking Kenya to the next level of first world status, so to speak. So I want to urge each one of us to be able to work together towards that direction. Secondly, I believe in the science, technology, research, and innovation for society. And it is for that reason that we have a big program coming up in 18th to 22nd of May this year, and really want to encourage all our partners, public, private, at different levels, at national, regional, and international, to join so that we can all be able to celebrate the space, the place of science for this society, and be able to demonstrate the impact in our research and innovation. So really, mine is to urge everybody to work, let's work together in this space. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for the conversation that we had. I'm looking forward to the next one. Asante sana.
Asante sana. Thank you, Professor Shaukat Abdulrazak, for great conversation this afternoon.
Thank you very much.